Hello everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is energy efficient IT infrastructure solutions for emerging enterprises. Today's speaker is Mr. Amod Ranade, who is the GM, Data Center and Business Development. And today, the solutions we'll talk about are not only limited to server rooms and branch offices, but they're flexible enough to be adapted to whatever dedicated IT space that you will be dealing with, whether they are closets or distributed environments, server rooms, non-dedicated spaces, or data centers. Now I would request Mr. Ranade to please take over. Hi, Amod.
Hi.
I'm audible now? Start. Yeah. Please start.
So thank you everyone for joining us today on this call, and I will take you through some of the things that we are doing at Schneider Electric with respect to emerging enterprises and the kind of solutions that we are evolving for addressing the particular needs of the emerging enterprise customers. So just to give you a quick overview about what Schneider Electric does globally and how it ties in with the overall approach of supporting IT at the enterprise level. So Schneider Electric is a global specialist in energy management. So right from the source, which in most of the cases is an electrical grid, to the point of consumption, which could be the cable that is connecting into the equipment. That is the kind of scope that we have from Schneider Electric. And not only about energy saving or energy transmission, but we also have a complete portfolio of solutions for enterprises, including air conditioning and management software and so on and so forth. We closed last year at about 24 billion euros in sales. Something that we take pride in is the fact that 41% of our sales came from new economies like India. So even if you look at the geographical spread, number 2 revenue contributor in Schneider Electric is Asia Pacific, right next to Western Europe. And so we have a good focus on emerging markets, including India, and that is also demonstrated in the share of business that we drive through these. You will also notice that out of our diversified end markets, 16% of our revenues came from data centers. And that is a very good proof of the seriousness with which we look at data center solutions and the investments that we are making in products, technologies, as well as solutions for this particular segment. Largely, Schneider Electric focuses on these 5 markets, and whenever we talk about emerging enterprises, there is always an opportunity there is always a need from the customer side for solutions from more than one of these end markets that we serve. So as a part of utilities and infrastructure, we focus on electrical utilities, medium voltage, high voltage switchgear, bus bars. We also have power management solutions, special solutions for electrical utilities, oil and gas, marine, water. By water we mean water purification, water distribution at a city or town level. With respect to industrial and machines, we provide solutions for industrial automation as well as electrical switchgear. We also provide a lot of softwares for automating many of these processes in the industries. So the 2 brands that are very popular in these 2 segments is Merlin Gerin on the distribution side and Telemechanic on the automation side. With the data centers and networks, the brands that we are known with in the country are APC, MGE, Uniflare, APW President, Digilink, and Actasi. So with this, we are able to cover almost all the infrastructure requirements within a data center, from IT enclosures to power conditioning, UPS systems, air conditioning systems, software for management, building management systems, electrical distribution, and so on and so forth. In the non-residential and residential sector, we do have a lot of solutions with respect to building management systems, with respect to switches for residential, including smart switches, and so on and so forth. Our journey in India in particular is also, many times misunderstood. So I just want to share with you that, Schneider has been in India for 50 years. And this started off with the first entry in India with a joint venture between Muralidharan and Tata in 1963. And since then, we have been continuously investing and expanding our portfolio in India. Especially in the last 5 to 6 years, we have seen a lot more aggressive growth with respect to acquisitions and our solution portfolio. And that is where you will see investments like TSE on the BMS perspective, APC for data center solutions and power solutions. We talk about Pelco, which is the #1 brand globally when we talk about CCTV and surveillance. We talk about Uniflare, Consor with respect to energy saving as well as air conditioning. We talk about Zycom for again surveillance solutions. We talk about Ariva for transformers, electrical distribution, President for racking, Digilink for structured cabling. Luminous is also one of the Schneider Group companies now, and as a result, we also have a lot of solutions from a residential perspective, but that is not what I will be looking at covering today. When we look at the way Schneider approaches customers is largely based upon the kind of application area that we look at from the customer's angle. And that is where we are organized ourselves into business units which are named as power, which focuses on power distribution. We talk about buildings, where it is more about building automation and security. We talk about industry, where it is mostly in industrial and factory automation. And we also talk about energy, where it is about energy generation and transmission. But what I will be talking about today is from the IT business unit, which focuses on creating a physical infrastructure for IT rooms of all sizes. So the way data centers get defined today is also very tricky, right? So whenever we say data center, it is natural for us to imagine a very large space with a huge number of servers, storage, networking equipment, etc. connected on that particular data center floor. But when we look at it, the way IT is being used, consumed, and the way we are dependent on IT from an emerging enterprise or a small and medium business perspective, even a small server, which may be the main connection point between the internet and their office, is very critical depending upon what all applications are being worked on in that small branch office, which are critical for their business to run. So we no longer need to constrain ourselves with respect to the size of data center infrastructure, but the criticality of that IT equipment for supporting the business is what largely will define what we call as a data center or not. So the way we are looking at it, even a small branch office automation rack can also be a data center for that particular business. But for easier understanding, this is the way we are going to talk about. So when we are talking about one or less racks with IT equipment, which could be networking switches, it could be firewalls, it could be servers, it could be storage, it could be passive, and so on and so forth, is what we'll call as a branch office. The moment it is more than one rack and largely focusing on networking application, which could be like a hub room or a network closet, that is what we will call as a network closet. Server room is what we will call data centers, which are up to 5 racks. So right from 1 rack to 5 rack, anything in between, is what we will term as a server room. Like I already covered, just because I'm calling it a server room does not mean that this server room is any less critical for a particular SMB customer's IT as a large data center would be for a large corporate. It is equally, but just to differentiate between the two, and because we see there are a lot of unique demands from the SMB segment, we are calling it as a server room, and that is the solution that I will discuss with you today. We have been delivering industry-leading solutions with a lot of patents to our name. We have been leading the innovation and research and development for solutions across the space for supporting IT. And that has given us a lot of insights from customers like you who share with us what are the pain points that you face when you need to deploy a certain amount of IT at a premise, and that is what is helping us with respect to helping our customers grow and adapt to these changes. So today let us now focus on the area which is marked out in the blue, which is branch offices, network closets and server rooms. The small and medium business segment, also called as the MSME or a micro, small and medium enterprise or emerging enterprise, is an integral part of the India story. We have seen in the past that we have been insulated from many of the downturns economically in the Europe and the American markets, largely because of the less dependence that we have on those countries or economies with respect to our economy. One of the largest strengths of India is with respect to our MSME enterprises or SMB enterprises, which contribute almost to 10% of our GDP. We expect more than 34 million such enterprises exist in India. 45% of manufacturing output and 40% of exports employs 73 million people in this particular segment. What we are also seeing is that the industry is growing at an X rate, but the small and medium enterprises are growing at a much higher than the industry rate even today. And so we are expecting to see that 82% of these companies are expecting a growth which is between 15 to 20% in the next 2 years, so which is much faster growth as compared to the overall industry. We are also seeing that 6 out of 10 SMEs, that is 60% of small and medium enterprises, are forced to plan their budget every year. We do see in very large enterprises that the budget cycle itself covers a longer period of time, maybe a 2-year budget or a 5-year budget and so on and so forth. But in the small and medium enterprise segment or the small and medium business segment, the financial pressures force us to look at just budget for this year and move on, right? And that is also something that our research has indicated and which we are listening to and trying to create a solution for. There is always a myth that the moment we talk about small or medium enterprises, their IT requirements would be different. And the reason I'm calling it a myth is because our research and the voice of our customers indicates that SMEs today make up almost 22% of the IT market. And also it is one of the fastest growing segments in India. 90% of these IT adopters are adopting technologies such as virtualization, cloud computing, mobility, that is accessing their networks through mobile devices, ERPs and CRM. So you always used to be a myth that, if there is IT deployment happening in a small and medium enterprise, it must be for just basic computing, right? But that is not what the customers are telling us and what the data points are showing us. So irrespective of the size, almost everybody has a potential to benefit from technologies like virtualization, cloud computing, mobility platforms, ERPs and CRMs, and as such, everybody is investing on these kind of technologies. There is a considerable loss for any small and medium business or emerging enterprise with respect to downtime of their IT, and that is largely coming with respect to the dependence that we have today in running our businesses on IT. A couple of years back, I'm sure everybody would have seen that in many of the shops which come under these small and medium enterprise categories used to have manual bills being generated. So with handwritten bills is how the accounting used to take place. Today we are seeing automation and computers with respect to accounting very commonly practiced in the smallest of the shops. Even the sweet shop in the corner of our house many times has an automated computerized bill printout that we are talking about. So the complete loss of IT for that particular business does have a direct impact, because that directly results in customer dissatisfaction, longer queues, and hence the challenge of losing customers. The changes that are affecting the IT environment also are changing the landscape when we talk about emerging enterprises or small or medium businesses. Traditionally, this is how, let's take an enterprise which had 5 server rooms in multiple locations, and that is the way they were providing a network for their business. Now, the moment technologies like virtualization come in, there is clearly an opportunity to do more with less. So, with IT equipment which are equivalent of only 3 racks, now it may be possible to do the same amount of computing or even more than what was being done earlier with 5 racks. The moment you add into the flavor the next stage, which is called consolidation, there is further reduction of IT that could be possible. So now instead of 5, we go down to 3, and instead of 3, we go down to 2. Further, there is a growing acceptance for co-location as a business, wherein the small and medium enterprises can quickly take up space in a larger data center and get billed as per their usage. And also many of these co-location players do provide additional services as well, which also results in the attractiveness of that particular business model. Which means now, on our premise, we are reduced to just 1. With more and more increase of cloud adoption happening, and because of the co-location move, now there are a lot of co-location players who are looking at providing services in a cloud model. So the small and medium enterprises can quickly tap into that cloud and get an up and running ERP or a CRM or a mail or an accounting package and so on and so forth. Thus, we are seeing that the deployment on site is expected to reduce. But the point still remains that as our number of users who are going to access increases and their dependence on that data access increases, the way they want to access it will keep on changing. So we will have mobile devices connecting to that network, we will have desktops connecting to the network, and so on. And that results in a lot of ambiguity with respect to small and medium enterprises. Many times we are seeing that enterprises in that segment consider having a backup at their office space as well, at least from a data perspective. So looking at that, what we are seeing is the IT deployment on premise is definitely not disappearing, although by leveraging technologies like virtualization, consolidation, co-location, or cloud computing, it may reduce in its size. Our dependence on technology cannot be demonstrated any better than this slide that I'm just putting up with a pinch of salt, right? So today we have already reached a situation where at work we are connected to a desktop. At home we usually get connected to the desktop, maybe on Facebook or something like that. Many times our kids are definitely going to come and capture our IT device and use it for playing. And so much so that, we might also be dreaming about what we are doing in that social media and so on and so forth. So with this reality today, the criticality of network availability is extremely high and paramount. So most of the businesses have robust strategies for handling their businesses from a security perspective, from a customer serviceability perspective, and so on. But when the data center or the network on which all this is running does not have the same kind of high availability in its design, that starts becoming a challenge. The challenges usually that our customers tell us they face is that in a small and medium enterprise or an emerging enterprise, space itself is premium. Most of the entrepreneurs, have to do a lot of planning to ensure that they have the right office space to begin with to start their business. So forget about the luxuries of having a very large office and things like that. So from that perspective, small rooms will always remain a challenge. Many times these rooms may not even be dedicated. So we are always looking at situations where a storeroom has to double up as a network closet, or a pantry has to develop as a hub room space, and so on. We are finding that with more and more technologies moving towards virtualization and cloud-based models, high-density computing equipments like blade servers are also becoming commonplace, even when we talk about the emerging enterprises or the small and medium enterprises. As a result, hotspots, wherein at a particular spot the cooling gets affected, is also becoming very common. All this results in a mess, right? And the next image will show you an indication of what we mean by shared spaces, small rooms, and so on and so forth. And I'm sure many of you have also seen similar situations in your workplaces. Now, this forgotten space is becoming critical because of the importance of network availability, and as such, now there is a requirement and a need being felt to ensure that the IT deployment, even small in size, needs to be very robust. To make it robust, these are the IT challenges that are being faced. It is very difficult to forecast what kind of IT will be required itself. That becomes the first challenge. So most of us are very optimistic and aggressive when we are planning our businesses as an emerging enterprise or a small and medium business, but it is very difficult to rightly forecast what kind of a growth path our business can take. Secondly, if we are going to leverage virtualization, consolidation, cloud computing, etc., then the challenge becomes the choice of technology itself. Most of our emerging business owners lack the on-site technical resources to help them make the right choice from a technology perspective. Also, lack of or limited dedicated space for IT equipment also becomes throws in a challenge with respect to how to design an infrastructure which can be as robust as an enterprise class data center. With these subpar operating conditions for IT equipment, the direct impact is downtime or loss of availability of the network for the business, and which results in a lot of loss of business, loss of profitability, customer dissatisfaction, and so on. One of the most common things that we hear, and I'm sure you will agree with me, is that budgets itself becomes the biggest constraint when we talk about small and medium businesses or emerging enterprises, because most of the funding goes for revenue generating or business growing kind of investments, and IT, if looked at as a cost center, usually gets a stepmotherly treatment. And as a result, if we are looking at creating an infrastructure solution, it needs to be affordable for this particular segment of our customers. Otherwise, again, we have the same challenge with respect to adoption. At Schneider, we are adapting to this change in this space, and the first step is that we have recognized these trends that are transforming the industry, especially virtualization, cloud computing, the growth of IT in small and medium enterprises, and so on. We have also done extensive research which indicates that we have the entire product portfolio required to come up with a complete turnkey solution for server rooms and environments of that nature. We also found as a part of our research that because one of the challenges faced by our segment is that there are no technical experts who can guide with respect to technology appropriateness, we are also transforming our ecosystem, which is our channel partners, and we are enabling them to be able to fill that gap with respect to the expertise, and that can be available to all the small and medium businesses throughout India through our channel partner network. So what we are doing is we are investing in our channel partners who are already IT partners for the SMB segment, and along with the advice that they provide with respect to what kind of a compute device is appropriate, what kind of a consumption device is appropriate, whether they should consider virtualization, whether they should consider cloud, what kind of applications should they start with. They should also be able to guide their customer base with respect to what kind of infrastructure is required for housing this IT so that the desired uptime can be ensured. We are also tailoring our solutions to solve real customer challenges, and India for India solutions is also focus area from Schneider Electric. So we have identified that India has some unique challenges and unique solutions are required to handle them, and we are investing in solutions which are India for India as well. Infrastructure for SMB IT is the name of our offer for the server room solutions up to 5 racks, and it is nothing but an affordable, adaptable physical infrastructure for housing small IT environments, but keeping in mind that it is as simple as possible. Now, simplicity with respect to configuration, with respect to ordering, with respect to installing, and also with respect to operating and maintaining it in the long term. So we have tried to create a solution that is simple, adaptable, and affordable, and that is what we are calling infrastructure for SMB IT. What all will this solution consist of? So very clearly, we have looked at the complete requirement of features and parameters that are required to bring about the high uptime from your IT equipments. So cooling and or ventilation, services with respect to design services, with respect to operating services, with respect to monitoring services or after sales service. Remote management capabilities, we are finding today that the need for remotely managing or monitoring your infrastructure, the need is much larger than in the larger enterprises, because in a larger enterprise you can afford to have people in 3 shifts to handle equipment 24/7. But in small and medium spaces, when most of your staff will be working in only 1 shift, if there is a critical alert that needs to be addressed, you would expect to get alert on your mobile phone or through an email or through an SMS and so on. So remote management is also something that is being created for this solution. Physical security with respect to ensuring that only the right people access these IT equipments and there is a record kept. So we are talking about access control for the doors, we are talking about surveillance solution, we are talking about security with respect to water leak detection and things like that. Most of the IT equipment today that are getting into our space of small and medium businesses is rack mountable. As a result, enclosure system which makes it easy to install, comfortable to manage with respect to the cabling, etc., is also part of the solution. Power protection and distribution, so all these solutions will require UPS systems to protect them during blackouts, and as a result that also is a part of our solution. What we have come up with is this portfolio of 4 solutions or 4 types of solutions. Let us look at them one by one. The first solution is what we call a one rack solution for ventilated environments. Now, as the image indicates, this is a single rack solution which can support up to 3 kV of IT inside. There is an air conditioner which is already inside that cabinet. So effectively, this cabinet works like a refrigerator. So the way our refrigerator at home keeps the food inside cool, but the refrigerator gets heated up on the outside, so it does emit all the heat into the ambient. Similar way, this particular enclosure keeps the IT equipment inside in a proper cooled and controlled environment, while the heat that it is removing, it exhausts into the room outside. As a result, this kind of solution is expected to be kept in a ventilated area. Otherwise, in an enclosed space, this particular cabinet will keep on adding heat into that room. What kind of environments are we talking about? So very clearly we are looking at environments like shop floors and factories where the entire factory many times is not air conditioned, but it is completely properly ventilated. So if we are providing some kind of a computer controlled or a robotic equipment which requires computers very close to it, they can be housed in this kind of an enclosure and placed right on your shop floor, and environmentally controlled and safe and secure environment can be provided. We have a lot of options with respect to the management softwares and surveillance cameras and so on, which also become options for the solution, so that if you have a factory environment where you have 10 or 12 installations like this, it is easy for you to monitor and manage from a central location. The second solution could be in cases like malls, where many times we see there is some kind of computing equipment required, which can be housed in parking lots and areas like that, which are ventilated, protected against sun and rain. The second solution is what we call about is for a single rack solution for office environments. Now here we are talking about an environment which is expected to be air conditioned, but the customers are not able to afford building a large server room, which is a dedicated space. So with this solution, we can do away with a dedicated server room space. This cabinet, which looks more like a furniture cupboard, and that is the reason why it is disguised like that, it can become part of your cabinet row in the office itself. It is completely soundproofed. As a result, the IT equipment inside do not generate noise in that office environment to disturb your customers or your staff while they are working. It has the necessary ventilation capabilities to emit heat out up to 3 kVA, and which needs to be taken away by the comfort cooling of that particular office space. Again, we have options with respect to rack-mounted UPS systems, management cards, camera systems, temperature sensors, and so on, so that we can create an infrastructure which can be remotely managed for all the parameters with respect to access control, with respect to temperature, with respect to UPS and battery health, and so on and so forth. So very clearly a solution for office space. The third solution is a solution wherein we talk about racking, powering, and management. So many times we find that customers in this segment do prefer to go with comfort air conditioning alone, and as a result we have created this option where other than cooling, at least the other three things with respect to racking, power conditioning, and management can be properly designed and created. So we have solutions with respect to racks for networking as well as server application, rack-mounted UPS systems, SNMP cards for network manageability, camera systems, temperature sensors, and so access control, and so on and so forth. So in this solution, an existing comfort AC can be used, although from a best practice perspective, that would not be a great idea, and as a result, we also have a complete turnkey option, which is an end-to-end solution from 2 to 5 racks. Now, we saw in our research and also the slides earlier that indicated that the challenges that are faced in a small and medium or emerging enterprise is with respect to space. So what you will find in this slide is that there are some equipment which is actually shown on top of the racks, right? So they are actually air conditioners that get mounted to the ceiling. The reason we selected this kind of air conditioning system is firstly, it requires zero footprint. Most of the traditional air conditioners for data centers, etc., are floor mounted systems which take up a lot of space in your server room area. And because we know in our segment the space is premium, so we have created a solution which is optimized from a footprint perspective. So as long as we get up to 10 feet of height, which is usually the height even in our homes, we can create a server room in that with the smallest footprint so that more space becomes available for customers for their business use. Secondly, we have also done something to appropriately choose technologies depending upon our budgets. So we know that comfort air conditioning is for cooling people, but for equipment cooling, precision cooling becomes very premium when we talk about this particular segment. So we created an offer based on our solution which is high sensible cooling, which is much better than comfort cooling because it is designed for equipment cooling, but it does not provide precision cooling with respect to humidity control. Nowadays, we are seeing commonplace, most of the IT equipment allow non-condensing humidity up to 90%. And as a result, humidity control is becoming less and less critical to manage. So with high sensible cooling, with equipment which are designed to work 24/7, which do not take up any space in the floor, we are able to have a very optimum solution from a space as well as budget perspective. The second thing that we have done is an integrated panel, which is the first panel that you are seeing, wherein all the equipment with respect to the safety security, for example, fire panel, very early smoke detection alarm, VESTA panel, NOVEC-based gas suppression system for fire, electrical panel, rodent repellent systems, and all these equipment fit into that one single panel. Again, the benefit that you get is you are able to reduce the dependence on the walls, because many times these kind of rooms end up being with partition walls which are not strong enough on which to mount an electrical panel and so on and so forth. So in this solution, we have taken into consideration that even if you have a very thin partition wall, which is usually the case when we talk about small and medium businesses, the solution does not depend on any wall for any support. So as long as we get a ceiling to mount the air conditioning on, everything else is floor mounted. There is no requirement for a raised floor, although this can also be placed on a raised floor for aesthetic purposes, but from a solution perspective, it does not depend on a raised floor. The entire system has a management platform built in where on a single screen, you can monitor all the components of the solution, which is UPS systems, automatic transfer switches for the networking rack, temperature sensors in the cold air and the hot air, the air conditioning system is on SNMP, the fire panel, the VESTA panel, etc. can get integrated to see the status of these devices, and so on and so forth. Even the access control with a biometric thumbprint reader is a part of the turnkey solution. Thus, we are able to create a ready design. So you don't have to waste the time in evaluating multiple options, etc., and then coming up with a BOQ, because we have already done the optimization from a space, from the simplicity, and from the affordability perspective. We can always adapt these. Like many of the things that we see in India is that it's never a possibility that one solution will solve everybody's problem. So there will always be certain unique requirements that we will need to address and adapt to, and as such our solution allows that to be done with respect to extending the battery backup, adding transformers for neutral management, different architecture of cooling, more options with respect to power distribution, maybe a managed or metered power distribution, softwares for automating many of these management features, like structureware data center solutions from a software perspective, remote monitoring service where if all these equipments are anyway supplied by Schneider Electric, who better to monitor this equipment on a 24/7 perspective than Schneider Electric itself. So we have already launched remote monitoring service as well, which becomes one of the options that can be selected with this kind of a solution. In which case, remote monitoring center of Schneider Electric 24/7 monitors the health of all these infrastructure equipments and ensures that they are always up and running. This completely frees up these emerging enterprise managers' bandwidth to focus purely on his business and his growth, because all the equipment will be handled by Schneider Electric itself. To make it simple, we have created solution documentations which make it very easy for you to understand what kind of solutions are available, what are the options available. It's more like a menu card. So depending upon your requirement, quickly a design or reference design can be selected. If it requires small changes or updations, the same can be quickly done, and our channel partner closest to you, who many times will also be the person providing you with the IT and the software, can also provide the infrastructure quickly without any complications. Thus, we have made it simple for you to access these solutions as well through our channel partners. So, in summary, infrastructure for SMB IT is a feature-optimized solution. It is very flexible. We can configure and add on many kinds of options, and flexibility is available. It is simple because we have taken away the design element by having pre-designed, pre-configured solutions, which are very simple to source, which are very simple to operate and manage. Easily accessible through our local partners. So we have a huge network of channel partners who have been enabled and trained on these kind of solutions, and they are able to quickly service you with these kind of solutions. So a one-stop shop for all your infrastructure needs. A situation which used to look like this some time back, a typical small office in a small and medium emerging enterprise, can be transformed into something like this. So you will definitely want to ask me, where has the IT gone, right? So many of these old IT equipment, the new ones, smaller ones can do more computing than the same. All of them, including switches, including storage, can go into that small rack that you see, which looks more like a furniture with a flower pot on the top. So with a complete soundproofing, the person or your customer sitting on the sofa next to it will not be able to hear the IT equipment or will not get disturbed by that while you are discussing business with him. Spot the server room contest. Again, on the left hand side, what looks like an office cabinet is actually the server room for this particular office, supporting up to 3 kVA. So very easily 3-4 servers, 1 or 2 storage, 3 or 4 networking devices, etc. Everything, including cabling, managed and locked into that cabinet. One of the biggest benefits of this kind of a solution is protecting by anonymity. So most of the time your customers won't even know where the IT is, and that is the best security that you can have for your IT if nobody knows where it is. Again, another scenario of a small office, maybe a research office or maybe a travel agency, where small amount of IT is required to connect to systems which may be on the cloud. A small cabinet can do the work with high robustness, high reliability, very easy manageability while optimizing on space. In summary, SMB IT environment is changing. We are seeing the changes with respect to IT adoption as well as the new business models. Our customers in this segment are facing new challenges and their dependence on IT is increasing. As a result, they need more available uptime from their IT deployments, and there needs to be a change in the way these are deployed today. APC by Schneider Electric has developed infrastructure solutions for such small IT spaces that are simple, adaptable and affordable, and we would seek your confidence and support to lead the way with solutions which are tailored for today's challenges and tomorrow's growth.